Hi all. In this lesson we're going to be discussing understanding portrait photography. There is, as you're going to see with this lesson, many aspects to portrait photography outside of the just the settings on the camera. The video portion of this lesson is going to mostly focus on the settings in the camera, but the written portion here is going to discuss a lot of other things involved in portrait photography, and it's going to give you a new appreciation for those professional photographers. And so here we go. What is portrait photography? It is capturing people. It can be one person or a group of people, and it's not really considered a snapshot but a composed image. So a snapshot would be more impromptu. This is composed, taking time to set it all up. Why is this an aperture setting? You will recall when we started talking about aperture that I have in our course outline grouped all of the icons, the modes that our cameras have, especially our point and shoot cameras, to go with aperture. This is one that focuses on aperture. And why is this an aperture setting? The focus is the person's face, although the entire body and the background may be included. Use a large aperture or that small number for nice blurry backgrounds. You're going to recall that shallow depth of field gives you that cool blurry background. And then you would focus on the face. Or, of course, it's not wrong to use a small aperture with a large number and keep the whole photo in focus, including the background. These are just the choices that you have. So this is why it's an aperture setting. You would be using that AV mode if you have a DSLR camera to make your choices on whether to blur out the background or not. Lighting for the indoors. This is one of the first factors we're going to discuss in portrait photography. So if you're indoors, you're going to want to find most often that soft light, and it's going to be light that is off camera. You want it to be soft so that you don't have all those harsh shadows all over the face. If you have a really bright light, that is going to be a harsh photo. If you have a lower light and choosing just the right lower light, you're going to have soft lighting. And the soft lighting is going to have less harsh shadows, but that doesn't mean that some of those photos out there with the harsh shadows aren't really artistic. It's all in the eye of the viewer of the photo. So although soft lighting is preferred, that harsh lighting is not always wrong. It's whatever you're trying to go after and whatever you're trying to get that photo to say to the viewer. Photos speak. And I would also mention that it is difficult inside to get the light bouncing off of other things in the room, and you might pick up some colors from other things in the room, and that is something we haven't talked about in the lessons yet, but we will in the future, but just keep that in mind. It's always said, recommended, that a north-facing window, if you're going to be using the light from outside, is the best kind of window. The sun sets in the east and the west, so you can imagine that if you have that direct sun coming in, either from the sunrise or the sunset, it's going to be a harsher light than if you're going to have a north or a south. I don't know why they don't say south, but if you think of the principle of this, even if you have an east-facing window, then consider where the sun is at when you take the photo, what time of day. An east-facing window might give you some interesting light afternoon time, maybe about 1 o'clock. It might be just about right to give that soft lighting. So consider the purpose of that one. For professional photos, now we're not going to be talking, of course, a whole lot about this because I am not a professional photographer, even though I think it would be fun to do someday. But if that is your goal, I want you to consider buying lighting. When you go to the professional photographers, they're setting up these lights and they're raising them and they're lowering them and they're repositioning them constantly, because we've learned that photography is all about light. So buy the lighting and learn about the lighting and the placement of the lighting. Here are some things you might hear. The basic concept is a 3-point lighting. The first one is called the key light. That is the main light that's right in front of the person. And next time you go get a professional photo taken, you may observe some of these things that they're using, and it may make a little more sense. So you have the key light, which is the light right in front of the person. You have a number 2 fill light, which is a smaller light right behind the key light, and this is positioned to get all of those shadows off of the eyes. This is the fill light. You're going to recall hearing maybe a fill lighting even in flash photography, where you fill the photo with a little bit of light to take off those shadows. 3 is backlighting, also known as, that's the AKA, also known as rim lighting or hair light. So the third light that you put out there is going to go in the back, and that's to rim light the shoulders to kind of bring depth between the maybe the shoulders and the background, or depending on placement, it might bring some of that cool lighting on the back, through the back of the hair. And the fourth one, yes, this is 3-point lighting, but the fourth one is called a kicker light, and this is kind of placed to the side, and it is done to purposefully bring maybe the shadows to the sides of the face. It's one of those artistic things, so it can be a 3-point or a 4-point, but it's still called 3-point. Yeah, it's one of those quirky things that photographers do. Quirky things in all hobbies. There's another one called butterfly lighting, and it only uses 2 lights, the key light and the back light. And the reason it got this name is because there's actually a butterfly-shaped shadow on either side of the nose. Lighting for the outdoors. Overcast days are best because those do not give your harsh shadows. So when you are first taking photos, you usually think, it's a nice bright sunny day, let's go take photos. That is a concept that it's been passed down for generations. I don't know where that came from. When actually, if it's cloudy outside and not raining, you say, this is the perfect day, let's go out and take photos, because there's not going to be any harsh shadows on the faces. And your camera is going to compensate your camera settings so that the photos are still bright enough, the face is still bright enough. It's going to compensate for the overcast. Sunny day, fill in the shadows underneath the eyes with a soft flash. So if it is a sunny day and you're having problems with those shadows, remember that lesson we had on flash compensation. Don't have a high flash to do this, because then you're going to end up with shadows upon shadows. But use a soft shadow. This is that fill light that we were just talking about indoors that they use, professional photographers do, and that can also be achieved with your flash, but you have to be really careful using your flash. Or what's called a reflector. Professional photographers have these things called reflectors. You've probably seen them. They're big round umbrella type things with a metal inside, and they look around and they see where the light source is coming from, and they use it to bounce the light back onto the subject. Use the sun to backlight for a silhouette or lighting through the hair. So when we were reviewing the types of lighting for indoor lighting, we were talking about backlight to make the light go through the hair, but you can also use it to get those silhouette photos. So where you place your subject is important. Look around, see where your light source is, most often the sun, but it may be other lighting. It may be maybe you're on a patio, and there's outdoor lighting, and so look where it is and choose where to put your subject. Posing options. Here are just some ideas on ways to pose the subject. If you tell them to lean towards the camera, you get the engaging and friendly shot. If you lean back, you get that relaxed or sexy shot. Angle the shoulders or square them with the camera. Neither one is right or wrong. You have to decide what you're going for, what your image is portraying, and I have a sample of that at the end of this video. Twist at the waist for a thinner tummy. Now, this is not just good if you're a photographer, it's good if you're being photographed. So if you are going to get that professional photograph done, remember to just twist your tummy because it actually makes it look a little bit thinner. So tell people to twist. Cross one leg over the other for that thinner thigh. Remember, crossing the legs makes your thighs look thinner. Yes, I'm all for that one. Now arch your back to emphasize the bust line. Now, depends on what kind of photography you're going after. For me, I don't want to emphasize my bust line. I'm too shy for that. So I'm not going to arch my back. But maybe people with huge bust lines might not want to arch their back. But you know what I'm talking about. Think about those poses that those models make that you see in magazines. Buy books or download pose charts online. I don't remember where I found this because I recorded my video such a long time ago, but I actually found online a PDF pose chart, and it was great. I printed it out and took it with me to think about different ways that I could pose my husband when I was doing this video, and it was really helpful. And I can also suggest, if you're looking online, you may want to create some sort of notebook, just a very small JPEG images of different ways people are posed, to give you yourself some sort of an idea book on how, until things get more natural for you. Eye contact. Here's another factor. Do you tell the subject to look down the lens? There's some negatives and some positives, so there's no right or wrong. These are choices. If you're telling them to look right down the lens, which is the traditional thing, you think about the school photographs. They tell you, look at me, you have a strong and confronting pose that can create tension. So that's not always best. If you're not wanting the viewer of the photo to feel tension from the person looking straight at them into their eye, you may want to tell them, have you ever heard a photographer say, oh, look at my left ear, or look at my right ear, or look right over my shoulder? That's trying to get you to look just a little bit away from the camera so that you're not staring them down. However, the positive is that can be a very powerful photo. I mean, really, have you ever seen those ooh la la photos of men in magazines? I'm a woman, of course, saying this, so if you're a man listening, the women, but those ones, men with the beautiful eyes, and they just look straight at the camera, and you just want to melt. So there's no right or wrong. It's what you're coming for, what you want. Look off the camera frame. So there's the negative and the positive with looking off the camera frame. First, the positive is it's not intimidating. However, the negative, it could leave the viewer wondering what the subject is looking at. And I have an example of this at the very end, where I had my husband look off camera, but I had him look at his cell phone. So then the viewers weren't wondering what he was looking at. Two people looking at each other. The negative and the positive. The negative is you don't see their faces. Sometimes in photography, our goal is to preserve those memories of what the people look like, and if you only got half a face because they're looking at each other, then you don't get that full picture. But if you're just being artistic, and you've already got that straight on headshot and you're trying to get some artistic ones, then the two people looking at each other can draw the viewer into that relationship. The eyes again, but this time not eye contact, the eyes and light. And this is called a catch light. A catch light is a light source reflecting off the surface of the eye. And I know you've all seen these, but we are going to have a whole lesson devoted to catch lights. So I'm not going to go into it now to actually show you what it is. A catch light brings depth, dimension, and life to the eye. You want those catch lights. Being a good professional photographer, you will observe those catch lights. A catch light can be created later in editing, such as in Photoshop, but natural catch lights are best if you can get them. But you can create fake ones. And trust me, in the magazines, there's a lot of fake ones out there. When making eyes pop in editing, which we will be doing some of that too, where we'll make the eyes actually pop and we'll sharpen them and whatnot. Trust me, all the magazines have done this too. And a lot of professional photographers do that now. What sets them apart from I've noticed this recently. In my experiences, I went to one wedding, and the photographer had been a photographer for 40 years, and he was a really good photographer, knew his business, but he didn't keep up on what's new in the field. And what's new in the field is actually editing all the photos before you give them to your customers. And so his photos just weren't in comparison to the newer, fresh photographers. But making eyes pop, make sure you preserve the natural catch light, and I'm going to be showing you that in a future lesson. What are those hands doing? So we've posed them, we've looked at the eyes, now we have to look at the hands. And are the hands relaxed? Are the fingers separated? That shows that the hand's relaxed. Or are they clenched up due to nervousness? Because sometimes, like me, I don't like to be photographed and I get real nervous and I might, you know, have some tension in my hands, whether I've not really clenched them up to a ball, but you can tell they're not relaxed. You're nervous. Give them something to hold. This is one way to make those hands relax. But make sure that that prop is related to the photo and don't take away from the photo. Make it related. Make it something applicable. Rest your hand, or have them rest their hand on the leg or a chair or other object. Tell them, put your hand here or put your hand there, and that gives them purpose and makes them feel better about. I know when I sit down, I'm always like, okay, what do I do with my hands? You know, and if the photographer is leading me and telling me where to put it, then I feel more relaxed because I know he's paid attention, he or she's paid attention to that, and it must look okay. But don't make it fake. I hate those little fake ones where the old photographers, like when I was a little girl, tells you to put one hand on top of each other. You know what I'm talking about. Place your hands around your face. It's okay sometimes to put the hands around the face. Make sure it's not fake and too posy though. Side shots of hands look better than front on shots. So make sure that the hands are kind of angled so that you get the side view of them rather than the front view. About the only front view I can think of is a real close-up shot of a ring, but not even that is always good. Put little angle to that. Okay, we did the eyes and we've done the hands. Now let's talk about that mouth. Open the lips slightly to relax the subject. For me, it's not natural to open my lips a little bit. When I'm posing for a photo, I'm just going to close my lips. But if I'm nervous, you know what happens? Your lips get really tense and then your whole face tenses up. If you tell the subject to just open their lips just a little bit, then you're going to see their whole face relax. And you won't have any of that nervous, clenched teeth look. Expressions. To smile or not to smile? That is the question. That's the big difference you see in professional photographers. They will get half their photos smiling and the other half not smiling because everybody is different. Some people look better smiling, some people look better not smiling. Depends on how good their teeth are. You're not going to know which the family prefers, what little thing that they're not liking maybe about their smile or they're not liking about their teeth. So if you get plenty of both, you're sure to please those picking out the photos somewhere in there. Be funny and make them laugh, or to bring out other expressions by what you say. So this is what sets, I think, some really good professional portrait photographers aside from other professional portrait photographers. Try saying that 3 times fast. And it's their personality and whether they click with the person they're photographing and whether they can do and say things to bring out those expressions. I know even when I was reviewing all the photos I took for this photo op that you're going to see in the video later, some of them of my husband were not natural, not him. I'm just going, that's not the way you normally look. Where'd that photo come from? You know, you want to be able to bring out that look and expression in their face that brings out their personality and who they are. For children, sometimes it might be better for the photographer not to talk and allow the parent to talk a little bit because they're going to be able to bring out those expressions they know, or allow significant others to talk. If you're, the mom or the spouse, or the friends. If the friends are nearby, friends are going to bring out different expressions than you might bring out with what you say. You want it natural or posed. Now, we did talk about how portrait photography is posed, but some of it you can do all the setup and whatever, but then you can kind of, as you're talking to them, try to capture those natural impromptu things they do as they're talking or moving or whatnot. It's not going to be all about posed. It's going to be about some of them are going to be about those catching those little bitty moments you get as you're talking to them. What do you want the photo to say? So you have to know what you're trying to convey to the viewer of the photo in order to get that expression to come out. Can you convey the person's personality? That is important. A good photographer will be able to quickly pick up on a person's personality and little things about them, and then be able to talk to them to bring that out even more. Perceptive, I guess you could say, would be a skill of a professional photographer. Other kinds of expressions, maybe not for a professional photographer, but for photography that's trying to convey something, maybe for a magazine or for a layout that you're making, because we're digital scrapbookers here. You may want to try to capture that scared look. Put those hands up on side the face and give that open mouth scared look. Surprised, bored, sexy. You might want people to wink, not wink. I don't like winking. They're mad, maybe that worried look. Quirky. Oh, I love the quirky photos. That's a trend that I don't remember us doing when I was younger, because when I was younger, film cost so much, there wasn't this digital photography where you could go delete the ones you didn't like, and so you always posed that nice pretty smile or that soft look off the camera. But my son and his wife are the best at the quirky photos. They can really get those fun expressions down, and I think kids nowadays are much better at that than us old people who grew up with the film photographs. There's perplexed, ... just a number of things. And remember, body language also gives an expression. It works in conjunction with your face. The location, backgrounds and foregrounds. If you find interesting textures for the backgrounds, they make for more interesting photos. If you look for reflections to capture them, make them part of the photo on purpose. Maybe you stand by a lake and you get the bride and groom's reflection in the water. Look for interesting shadows and make them part of the photo on purpose. I know you've seen some of those online too. Between the camera and the subject. After you have carefully composed your subject and done all these things we've just talked about, the next factor is where you hold the camera. Now you've got the subject all perfect, but now you need to decide where the perfect placement for the camera and the lens itself is. This is the most mitigating factor in artistic shots. Move that camera. Do you want straight on for traditional photos? Do you want to look down on the subject, look up on the subject? Interesting angles? What are you going to include in that frame? And that is what sets photographers apart. You get down to this part and, other than the school photo shot. This is what is going to make you better than the other photographers, and a lot of times this comes naturally and sometimes it doesn't. And another thing to think about is position the focal point on the rule of thirds, which the focal point is often the eyes, and sometimes it's one eye or the other eye. So you may be focusing the whole person right down the nose on the rule of thirds point, or you may be doing one eye or the other. It depends on how close up you are. So putting it all together, what we've talked about, the camera settings, you have to pay attention to the camera settings, pay attention to the lighting, pay attention to the posing, pay attention to the eyes, pay attention to the hands, pay attention to the mouth, pay attention to the expressions, pay attention to the location and what's in the background, pay attention to framing the shot. A portrait photographer must be a multitasker and look at all these things at the same time, and don't miss the shot in the meanwhile. So this hopefully gives you a whole new appreciation for paying those professional photographers. It unlike landscape photography, there is so much more you have to be looking at. I mean, think about even, I've done wedding photography recently, and you're doing a group shot, and you have to look at everybody and make sure their tie is not off this way or that way, or somebody's hat's not covering their face. I mean, you have to really be doing a whole lot at one time when you're doing portrait photography. So now we're going to watch the videos, and I must apologize. My camcorder is getting old. I've recorded a few too many videos with it, and lately I've been having problems, and I've been getting these blue shots, and I didn't realize it was blue until I got home. I've even taken many videos after this, and I've had to redo them just because they were blue, and I'm thinking I need to buy a new one. But I think if you look beyond the blueness, you'll be able to still learn with this video. And so here we go. I'm going to start it. Okay, here we are with the DSLR, and we've come out to the park to get some portrait shots because we wanted the green background and to have the background blurred out. And greenery blurred out in the background is always pretty. You can, I'm going to tilt this down a little bit, hopefully you can see it, use the portrait mode, which is a preset mode, and then just, it doesn't work in live view, but then just do like you always do and compose your shot and take the picture. I'm using the manual focus though. It does help. But for this instance, we're going to review the aperture priority mode, and we're going to turn on the live viewing. And then we got hubby out there, and we're going to compose the shot. Put him right about there. Let's zoom in a little bit. And we're going to take the aperture all the way down to 4.5, and I'm going to focus it so it focuses on his face, which then makes the rest of it blurred out, and take that photo. Now, if I want to get the background in focus, I'm going to make my aperture number much higher and take the photo again. And then the background is going to be much clearer. Let's take it all the way up and see what happens. And so you want to also remember If you need to turn on the flash for the flash fill, because right now he has a lot of, where's my button? There it is. It's because he has a lot of sun into his face, and you can change the strength, you can, if you remember, of the flash fill up here. Oops. If you need to, and you might need to practice a few times. But you're going to also remember that your distance affects your depth of field. And so if I zoom in to get more just his face and take this picture, well, I'm going to have to refocus now. And take this picture. Looks like the flash was a little too strong. Take that flash down. Let's take that picture again. Then, now I've forgotten where I was saying now, but your depth of field is going to be affected by how much you zoom in. So there, most everything is in focus. You can see the tree is even in focus. And if I take this aperture to a much lower number, like all the way down, and take it, then the background is blurred out. Now, it might be a little too blurred out. Sometimes you want to see what's in the background, so then you just up in a few stops. And test it at a variety of stops to see what you've gotten. And I almost think that flash is still a little too much. Now, if you're zoomed out and you're doing this, and I'm not sure if I showed this or not, and you are on autofocus, you want to make sure that you press it down halfway to focus on him, and then compose your shot and take that photo. And that way you're not getting the wrong thing in focus. If I wanted to focus out here in the trees, I could do that, and then he's going to be blurry. So that is about it for the portrait shooting. Now, we were really struggling that day in videoing because my husband was in front of the camera instead of behind the camcorder. And I recall we had to redo the video because the first one I did, the first sets we did, what you saw in the camera was all a reflection of my arm, and so we had to redo them all. And I'm going to start opening up the one for the point and shoot cameras. Another thing I want to mention as we're getting ready to watch this point and shoot video one is that I'm not so sure that a tripod is the best for the portrait photography, because I was kind of set. I could not easily move my camera around to make sure that things weren't growing out of his head, to get those variety of up and down and all the different angles that moving the camera and the photographer make a difference on. So my photos weren't as great as they could have been if they were off a tripod. So let's watch this one on the point and shoot camera. Okay, here we are with the point and shoot camera, and this camera has a portrait preset mode, and it is found under the scene selection. Of course, remember, look at your manual. Every camera is different. And this is where I can go back and forth and choose from a variety, and I have the portrait headshot one right here. So with that selected, what this setting does is to have it so the background is blurred out. And I'm going to zoom in a little bit, compose a nice shot, and just take my picture. Now in this case, before I take my picture, you can see where the block is, because I've put him on the rule of thirds. It's over here on this tree, so it's going to be focusing in on the tree and probably blurring him out. So what I'm going to do is untighten this so I can move it, and I'm going to hold it down part way and focus on his face, and then move it back and finish taking that picture. And so if I zoom in some more, it's probably going to get more of that effect of blurring out the background. It's not overly blurred, it's just nicely blurred. And there we go. So that's about all there is to taking the photos in the portrait mode in this camera. I bet you, let's see, I'm going to zoom in even more. And that's it. And so that is the video on the point and shoot camera. And trying to get this to close out. I have on the PowerPoint some photos for us to review from this photo shoot, and here is the first one. It's moving a little slow because it's trying to close out that video yet. My computer is saying you've used enough RAM. We actually decided to first film this against texture. We talked about texture, and so actually let's see if I can go backwards. Somehow we skipped a photo. Okay, we originally were going to do it here because we talked about texture, and I love texture in the background, and we found a building at the park with a brick wall, and then next thing we knew, all of a sudden, a field away, the family having a picnic began getting really noisy. So I moved to the other side of the building. We were private, nobody around, quiet day at the park, almost no one around. And what happens? Somebody drives up, parks, and gets out to play at the playground there. And we waited and tried waiting and waiting, and they could tell we were obviously there first and using the spot, and they still wouldn't leave, so we had to leave. But here are a few shots I got against the brick wall. This shows you the texture, and this also is a little bit crooked. You can see I would probably edit this in Photoshop because the lines in the brick wall slant a little bit. But this is that squared up straight view. And then the next view, I told him to slant a little bit or lean over, and you can see it's a much more artistic photo with him leaning and having the lines of his shoulders go a little bit different than the brick lines in the brick wall. And here's the one I said where I had him now not look straight down the camera, and so that we don't wonder what he's looking at off camera, I told him to pick up his cell phone and look at it. And so you can see that gives you a whole different feel to that photo. And here's another one, same thing, but I moved my camera. I'm actually now not straight on him, but I'm actually a little bit below him and looking up, taking the photo. So this just shows you between this photo and this one, how just changing your angle, that you can make a huge difference in the photo. Here's one at the park. Same thing. We have this is where we had to move to get privacy, and then what happens right after I started videoing, somebody came up to the parking lot, a whole group of people. Oh, we had a day photographing that last video, but they happened to go off on down the hill, and then we were left in privacy. But this is where we have a whole body portrait. You can kind of read his body language. This is actually a very natural pose for him. He puts his fingers in the pocket like that all the time. You can see he's on a hill, so he's slanted down. He's not standing straight up. He's got one leg straight and one bent, but he is square with the camera. And then you look at the next one, and I had him turn just a little bit, and you can see what a huge difference it makes. In this one, we have used the aperture priority so that the background is all sharp. In this one, you can see I've changed the aperture priority to blur out the background. So you can, both are right, neither one or the other or wrong. It's all you doing this stuff on purpose. This one I'm sharing with you because I told him to go out there and squat down like he always does. This is him in a natural position. I like this photo because as a family member, I know this says him. That is some of what, if you're a professional photographer, those are the photos that the family is going to pick out, the ones that speak out as them being them. And so it's okay to squat and whatnot, and there's reflections in the water in the background, and actually it's not too bad on the rule of thirds either. Here's the next photo, and this was taken during the video shoot, and this is what I want to mention, where I could not move the camera around very well being on that tripod. I did purposefully move it a little bit so that tree was not growing out of his head. But now the tree over here is on the rule of thirds, and so my eye is actually almost going to that tree first before it goes to him in the center. So I probably, if I was not on my tripod, not filming, would have recomposed this shot just a little bit more to take those things into consideration. You can see the background here is slightly blurry. I think this one was taken with the point and shoot. So this shows you a little bit about how the point and shoot gives you that kind of average blurriness in the background. If we go back to this one, you can see it's much more blurred, which I was able to do with the SLR, but this is kind of a natural blurring. And then this is expressions. This expression says to me, "Dear, we've redone this a zillion times. We've had to move. We keep having interruptions. When are we going to be done?" But I love it. This is an example for expressions. It's an example to show how I've really blurred out that background with my SLR camera. And this expression is the one I know my husband for. So I saw this photo and I absolutely loved it because this is him. This is an expression he might normally give to me. So this is what I'm saying about having other family members talking to the individual and capturing their personality. This is his personality. This is also an example of how it's okay to cut off their chin and forehead. It's okay. Don't be afraid to do that, because those actually make for some really artistic shots. You don't have to get the whole head in all the time or the whole body. However, on this one you see I do cut off his arm on the one side. and I think it looks a little bit too cropped. So sometimes the cropping off works and sometimes it doesn't. On this one, taken during the video with the point and shoot, I did get him right in line on the rule of thirds. I decided after reviewing this on my computer that the rule of thirds line is right there square in the middle of his nose, right between his eyes. I did a great job getting that on the rule of thirds, but it doesn't quite look right. I would suggest that I probably would have, since this is such a close-up shot, would have rather taken this eye over here on the side and put that on the rule of thirds. Move this over just a little bit, and that might have been a better photo. And here you can see now that eye is, and this is taken during the photo shoot, but I just lined it up a little better. This eye is more on the rule of thirds line than dead center on his nose. And so, and it allows you to see more of the background. So this is actually a better photo to me than the last one. And that is the end of our slideshow, and so I hope you have learned a lot, and I can't wait to see your portrait photos.